Sunrise. Welcome back, and thanks so much for staying with Sunrise Live on E! The African Leadership Academy is claiming to be the only Pan-African secondary school focusing on developing Africa's future leaders. It celebrated its official grand opening over the weekend. To tell us more about this prestigious academy, we joined in studio by the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of the Academy, Fred Swaniker, as well as a student, Dawit Mekonnen. Thanks so much for both of you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Fred, just the background of this academy, how was it founded? And obviously you must have seen a need in the market for such an academy.
Certainly, yes. The academy is an institution that aims to transform Africa by developing its future leaders. So we opened our doors 6 months ago with our inaugural class of 96 students. And our aim is to develop 6,000 leaders for Africa over the next 50 years. We're doing this because we believe that one of the most important things we can do to push Africa forward is to give it better leaders.
All right, but we're not referring to political leaders. This would be academia and business leaders, essentially.
We're talking about leaders in all spheres of society because we believe that to transform society, you need leaders to collaborate together from politics, in government, in business, in education, in healthcare. We're talking about the entrepreneurs, the leaders in the social sector, etc. and so on, who will really push the continent forward.
All right, and Dawit, how did you get to hear about it, being in Ethiopia, especially, and coming through the criteria and making it on the list for students?
The academy had a recruitment drive in East Africa, so the East African admissions officer was actually in Addis. They were on a recruitment drive, found out more about it at the website, africanleadershipacademy.org, downloaded the application form, and here I am.
Wow. And obviously there must have been something that made you stand out. I imagine that obviously there's a need for skills development and academic achievement, etc., around the continent, but you had to stand out and fight for your spot in the academy.
Yeah, that's right. The process was actually quite rigorous. They were looking at merit, academic merit, as well as service to community. What I offered to my community was a proposal to basically restructure the public transport system within my city, Addis Ababa. Proposed to the government. It was heard, but it wasn't implemented. So that was one of my services to the community.
Yeah, but that's one of the shortcomings in terms of leadership in Africa, the fact that, we might have brilliant policies and legislation, but the implementation always falls short.
Yes, and I think that's why we felt that there was a need to actually develop our leaders, because we train our doctors, we train our engineers, we train our teachers, but we don't train our leaders. And all of a sudden, people are expected to step up and play a role in leadership, but they haven't been developed. And so we believe that the leaders that Africa needs need to be developed from an early age, because they don't develop overnight. So identifying them between the age of 15 and 18 and really establishing them good values and setting a foundation so that when 10, 20, 30 years from now, they're expected to play leadership roles. They're prepared for it.
And I often speak about character development, in that the education system may not provide for such, and particularly depending on what background you come from. I mean, you have students that come from conflict areas, students that may be, heading households, etc., at a very tender age.
Exactly.
So there isn't that support structure.
Exactly. I mean, in this inaugural class, we had about 150 refugees who applied out of 1,700 applicants from throughout Africa, from 29 different countries. And so, exactly, people who have been through such difficult situations often have developed a very strong character and can make excellent leaders for Africa.
Who pays for it?
We have various sponsors who have enabled us to launch this academy. We say that financial means should not be a barrier to entering this academy. So we're looking for the most outstanding leaders in Africa, regardless of their financial background. And once we admit you, we'll find a way for you to come. And so the majority of the students in this class are actually on full scholarships. All
right. What have you learned that you didn't already know, Dawit, in the academy?
One thing that just comes straight away is, for instance, at African Studies, which is a course that I take, we were doing Ethiopian history, which is something that I've been doing all of my life practically, and I thought it would be mundane and monotonous, but it wasn't, because it wasn't just about the what and the when, it was about how and why. So it was about cause and effect, so that makes you relate it with what's happening today. So that's been the most inspirational.
Yeah, but we need to change the perception as well, that, Africa is the dark continent, and as you're saying, that we need to find the bright gems and portray them to the world.
Exactly, and you know, most education systems in Africa don't actually teach you about Africa. You know, I was educated in many countries on the continent, but I always learned about that country and the colonial power. I didn't learn about our own African history, African geography, African politics. And so what we're doing here is to change that perception of Africa and get our young people to really become passionate about the continent, to understand it. Because with that passion and understanding, you can really help to bring change on the continent.